Have breaking news in the NHL. It's the first day of waivers, and several players have been placed on waivers who could be claimed by other clubs. And we have big news out of Tampa with Andrei Vasilevskiy out long-term, needing surgery. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some pretty important NHL news to discuss. We're going to get started first with the news from the NHL Waiver Wire. Today is the first day for the current season where players are eligible to go on regular waivers. So as teams start to make roster cuts and trim down their training camp rosters, we're bound to see probably a healthy amount of players on waivers, likely over the next week to 10 days or so as we get closer to the NHL season. And the first group of that has taken place today. We have a bunch from the Pittsburgh Penguins, including young defenseman Ty Smith. Of course, Ty Smith was acquired by Pittsburgh from the Devils in the John Marino trade. Ty Smith has, I'm not really sure why things haven't worked out for him in Pittsburgh, but at this point, the way they've made additional moves on their roster, he's got a lot of players in front of him. I mean, and you know that Erik Karlsson and Chris Letang are going to be eating up a lot of minutes on that blue line. On top of that, you've got obviously Marcus Pettersson. You've got Ryan Graves who come in as a free agent, and that's your top four right there. You have some other options as well for your bottom pair, which Pierre-Olivier Joseph seems to have a good likelihood of grabbing one of those spots. They have a veteran in Chad Rubeadle, and there's all kinds of other depth options that they have for their 6, 7, 8 options. And Ty Smith's the kind of player that he's still young enough. He needs to play. He needs to play a meaningful role. There's no point keeping him around as an extra if he's not going to play, regularly and have any kind of opportunity to really grow his game here. So unfortunately for the Penguins, they've placed him on waivers. I kind of hope for his sake that he gets picked up, but at the same time, wouldn't be shocking if he clears and then is later traded. Sometimes you see players on waivers and are traded after because teams, if they pick them up on waivers, they're going to have to keep this player on their opening night roster. They can't put them down to the minors. That means that's how waivers work, right? Before they can go to the minors, they have to have an opportunity for other NHL clubs to give them a chance. So obviously, if a team has a spot they want to give them, they can do that. If not, he could clear waivers. They could pick him up by trade, and then he can be eligible to go to their minor league affiliate, and then they have him as a call-up option instead of somebody who has to be on opening night roster. So at the end of the day, hard to say if he gets picked up. But Ty Smith, just a few years back, was on the all-rookie team. With I think it was Keandre Miller and he were the two defenders. Norris, Robertson, and I think Kaprizov were your forwards. And Alex Nedeljkovic was the goalie. So that's 2 out of 6 players on an all-rookie team now that's ran into issues with their career and ended up on a waiver wire in the last little while. The Penguins have also placed Rem Pitlick on waivers. Of course, he was picked up from Montreal in that 3-way trade that involved Erik Karlsson coming to Pittsburgh. A little surprised. I thought he might get more of an opportunity, but Pitlick is available on waivers. Xavier Ouellet is another name to watch. Taylor Fedun and Jonathan Gruden are the remaining Pittsburgh Penguin players that are on waivers here today. The Vancouver Canucks have also placed goaltender Spencer Martin on waivers. This is not a huge shocker. I fully saw this coming after they picked up the contract of Casey DeSmith from the Montreal Canadiens. That kind of solidified their goaltending tandem at the NHL between Demko and DeSmith. Martin, yes, he could play for your minor league team, but they already have Seelovs, who is basically your prize goalie prospect, who you're hoping will become your eventual goalie of the future down the road, or at least at the very least part of the tandem at the NHL level. So you're going to want to play him as the main guy in Abbotsford. And they have some other free agent goalies they've brought in as well who can compete for that one of those spots in the AHL. One may have to go to the East Coast League. So there's kind of no spot there for him. So there was some talk that he could be traded. The Canucks have had some trade talk around him, but were unable to find a deal. He's not making much money either, which is good for cap purposes. So wouldn't be shocked to see a team pick him up. I know there's been some speculation about the Avalanche because Pavel Francouz is not going to be ready to start the season. Of course, I know we're going to talk about Vasilevskiy not being ready either, but I don't know if Spencer Martin's really the answer. For Tampa, there might be more experienced options that they want to go with in that case. But Martin is a serviceable goalie, a small sample size, but I fully suspect whether or not, even if he's not picked up on waivers, that he could be traded. Now, again, like Smith, wouldn't be shocking if he clears waivers first and then is traded. That might have been part of the conditions that some of these teams were talking to Vancouver about, so that they're not absolutely obligated to put him on opening night roster. The other player on waivers today is Cal Burke of the Colorado Avalanche. So that's all your waivers players for today. So like I said, we'll find out 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow if any of these guys were claimed, if they're going to be jumping training camps to another city, or if indeed they're going to be able to reassign to their minor league affiliates within the existing organization that they're playing with. Now, as I mentioned, we've learned some pretty other significant news in the last little bit here in the past hour. Was broken by Kevin Weeks, NHL insider, works for ESPN, that Tampa Bay goalie Andrei Vasilevskiy requires back surgery and is going to be out for about 10 weeks. Now, the Lightning have now put out a statement on this as well, confirming the surgical procedure and confirming that he's going to be out for approximately the first 2 months of the season. So 10 weeks, we're still about 2 weeks or so from the beginning of the regular season. And then you have, 8 more weeks after that. So, of course, being a significant surgery, you never know. Maybe he takes a little longer. Hard to say, right? Maybe things are a little bit quicker, but this is the type of surgery you're going to want to be careful with. Anything to do with the back is usually pretty tricky. What happened with Vasilevskiy is they determined he had lumbar disc herniation and needed surgical procedure to fix that. So that's a pretty big deal. Obviously, with goalies, their movements, flexibility plays a key role in the position, and obviously if he's not able to move properly, which we kind of suspected something was going on with him, because in training camp he's been on the ice, but he hasn't been with the main group. He's been doing a lot of work on his own with the goalie coach and stuff. I figured there was something, but they haven't really said much of anything. Even when the coaches talked about it, they kind of just played it off like, oh yeah, doesn't mean anything, nothing to worry about. And maybe they just didn't want to say, maybe they didn't know a lot yet, but usually we kind of figured something was up, and certainly is the case here. Vasilevskiy's appeared in 44 more games than any other NHL goalie that's a regular season playoffs combined over the last 4 years. He has played a ton. They rely on him heavily. It's definitely fair to say Vasilevskiy is the backbone of that team. Like when they won the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row, he was phenomenal. Look at last year. Vasilevskiy was not Vasilevskiy. Not to say that was the only reason why they lost against the Leafs, but it was a big reason why it was a lot closer. And there was numerous members of the Lightning who I think could have been a little bit better, which would have helped them win that series. But Vasilevskiy was not absolutely at his top game. Now, even the year before, when the Lightning played the Leafs in the first round and they ultimately won that series, he wasn't quite himself either. He did get better as the playoffs went along, though, and that allowed them obviously to go on a deeper run. But yeah, he's an absolutely huge, important piece. And talking about teams having good or bad starts affecting their seasons, like teams in the Atlantic are going to be ultra competitive this year. We're expecting, obviously, like you have your big four that have been good for a while here with Toronto, Tampa, Boston. You can throw Florida in the mix. They've been pretty competitive the last 3 or 4 years as well. And then you got your up-and-comers like Ottawa, Buffalo, Detroit trying to get back in the playoffs. We know Boston is expected. We'll see, because they always prove people wrong. So you can't really bank on Boston being worse. But, will they be historical like last year? Doubtful, but crazier things have happened. And now you've got Tampa, with a big blow here. The Panthers are starting the season without their top 2 defensemen, or they're going to be out. One's going to be out for about 2 months, and one's going to be out until after Christmas. So, teams that are looking to move up in this division, like your Ottawas, your Buffaloes, your Detroits, they're going to have to seize the opportunity early. And if they have great starts to the season and these guys start slow because of significant injuries, that could play a huge role into how this division plays out this year. So the thing with Tampa, too, is Jonas Johansson is now your starting goaltender. He's the only other, goalie with experience on your roster. That's a problem. I've been saying for a while that Tampa needs more goaltending depth, and they need to find a way to try to upgrade. Now, Vasilevskiy will be eligible to go on LTIR to start the season. He's going to miss at least, like I said, in 2 months, it's probably 24 games, so he's definitely qualifies for that, but they can't go spending like crazy because they're going to have to be able to activate him later on and get him back on the books because he's not expected to be out all year. So it's a completely different story than a season-ending injury. So we'll see. I don't know if this is necessarily going to mean that they're going to have a terrible start, but it's a significant piece of the puzzle here. And I would not be one little bit surprised to see the Lightning involved in goaltending market and picking up on somebody else because they can't go with just Jonas Johansson. Like they need more. They need somebody who can play some games. There's a few veterans on the UFA market, but nobody that you would expect just to steal you games or anything. I'd be curious to see how they handle the situation and how much it impacts their season. So let me know your thoughts on the waivers news and the Vasilevskiy news down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.